Hi everyone, welcome to Whole Artist Mastery. I'm Marianne Mitchell and I'm here today with Remy, who insists on being part of the conversation. That is, if he gets a little treat. So here we go. Today I'm going to talk about how you live into the channel of inspiration that lives within inside you and outside you. And speaking about the space in between, both physical space in between where you live and where you work, whether it's an hour commute to a studio or whether it's a 10-second walk out the door and into another room, and how that prepares you for getting into that zone, getting into the channel of artistic inspiration. So I'm going to take you from my kitchen with Remy to my studio, and I'll see you there. Hi again. I'm leaving my kitchen and going about 10 seconds to my studio over here, which is a separate structure yet attached to the house. This was built as a summer kitchen in my 1860s farmhouse. And so they made their meals in the summertime in a separate structure so that the house would stay somewhat cool in the summertime. Sometimes you feel like you're ready to immediately start painting. So the transition time from where you've been to getting to your workspace is short, and you immediately pick up your paints and your utensils and start to paint because that inner spark is ready to go, it's firing. But other times, that inner spark is either dormant or needs a little time to come into you. And so one of the ways to allow that to happen is, believe it or not, procrastinating. So there are lots of different ways to procrastinate, and a lot of people who work with me talk about how, I'm having trouble getting into the studio because I'm procrastinating too much. And I've come to believe that the act of procrastination is actually part of that in-between psychic space, between the everyday busyness of life and the space that you have to be in to allow that channel to open up inside you and out onto your canvas or your board. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you because the last time I was in the studio, I had to leave in a hurry and was unable to clean up. So what I usually like to do is come into my studio and have everything all set to go, because that's an invitation to just immediately start painting. But today I'm realizing that I need to spend some time cleaning up, which I'm going to do while I'm talking to you. And in the act of doing that is allowing me to physically and emotionally, and to some degree in my thoughts, allowing me to think about, okay, well, clearly I cleaned up all of the orange yellow, so I'm not going to be working with that today. What colors do I feel like working with? And a little bit depends on what you're working on in your studio. So the last thing I'm going to do is spray my palette here with some glass cleaner and wipe it off. And while I'm doing this, I'm actually enjoying the tasks at hand of simply preparing to work. And by doing so, it's helping me feel like I've left behind the rest of my life. And here I am getting ready to allow that spark to come out. What I find interesting about this is that artists across the board, actors and musicians and painters and writers, all talk about the need to have this in-between space. And in my daily practice of whole artist mastery, one of the things that I do is write an emailer, I call them emailers, which is inspired by things that I read, things that I'm thinking about, places that I've been, and putting together these seemingly unrelated pieces of information and sharing how I think about the world and how I feel about the world, and putting it in a way that it resonates with those who are reading it. So a few weeks back, I wrote about this, what I call your inner hovercraft, which is a way to sort of stay connected to what you're doing, stay grounded without being stuck. You know, a hovercraft rides about 3 inches above the water or the surface that's underneath it. And so it's separated yet still grounded. And that's a great example of this in-between space. So I want to read to you 3 quotes about 3 different kinds of artists that I wrote about in your inner hovercraft a few weeks back. And the first one came to mind when I was reading in the New York Times about Cate Blanchett's recent movie that came out in the fall of 2022 called Tar. And it's a long interview, but at the very end she says, "I like that moment, that intake of breath before the words come out or the music comes out. I want to be there. I want to be permanently there." In that moment, the intake of breath before the words come out or the music comes out, I want to be there. I thought that was such a wonderful way of talking about being in that in-between space and really, really deriving strength from it. The next person I'm going to read a quote from is an artist, a visual artist, Enrique Martinez Celaya, or Celaya. And he writes, "I'm an artist, but I'm also a physicist. And my studio practice is a cross between laboratories and a monastery, that kind of hybrid place," which I think is also fascinating because in a way, I feel like this studio and any of the studios I've ever had are also a cross between a place where I'm experimenting, I'm investigating, and I'm by myself and allowing my spirit to open up to the energies that are around me. The last quote is actually said by Graham Nash about Joni Mitchell, the musician. And he was saying about Joni, Joni likes to live, well, I'm prefacing it by saying that, like a welder's torch, that heat and point of contact between flame and object. That's where Joni likes to live. So these are things for you to think about, questions to ask yourself. Do I allow for this space between in my own life? And how do I make this space in between in my life? Physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Do you meditate? Do you walk? Maybe just the act of making art is a way for you to get into that in-between space. So thanks so much for watching. I invite you to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the Whole Artist Mastery YouTube channel. And then head on over to my website where you can sign up and get a free booklet with a number of different wonderful goodies that will support your art practice. And then check out the new online workshop. It's a pre-recorded workshop. It's called Practical Application for Painters. Actually, I'm wrong. It's called Practical Color Application for Painters. And it's all about how to make and use color in ways that color charts really fall short of being able to offer you that kind of information. There's a lot of mixing. There's a lot of talk about specific colors that can make lots of different colors using the essential 11 colors that I have, and how those essential 11 can make lots and lots of colors. So I invite you to look at that. Purchase it if it's something that you feel is really speaking to you, and then check out the other classes, entering abstraction into oil pastels and understanding your visual language. So thanks a lot. See you next time.